The old Siri activated again. Now it is shut off. So when I began more on this journey, I returned to a city that I had lived in for 5-ish years previously. And this time when I returned, I was at a different place in consciousness, and I was also actively and intentionally looking out and attempting to connect with people who were sharing similar values and going in similar directions. And pretty quickly, within weeks, I connected with people that were more aligned with me than I had ever connected with really up to that point in my life. And this was in a city that I'd been living with for 5 years previously. And I'd never connected with these sorts of groups and these sorts of people because I just wasn't at that place before, and because I wasn't intentionally and actively seeking it out. So it's there and it's available, but the feeling of loneliness is something that can occur. And that's just part of our practice, ultimately, of deepening our connection with ourselves, because that loneliness comes from, in my opinion, a feeling of disconnection from the self. Addiction, becoming addicted to a psychedelic. What about that? That, as far as becoming physically dependent, like is discussed with alcohol or cigarettes or opioids, I think that is almost impossible. I've never heard of it occurring. And as I said, some of them, they can feel tactilely nice at certain parts of the journey, but there's not really any psychedelic that I've ever experienced, which is it's over 12, that I would do just to feel good, which is what people are doing, utilizing alcohol or whatever, like to feel these sorts of sensations. So I think that's quite unlikely. But that's not the only type of addiction. Becoming psychologically dependent, that is possible. That, and what I mean by that is it becoming a crutch, to where you say, okay, I'm feeling this challenging situation, and instead of being in this challenging situation, I'm gonna view the psychedelic as some sort of like little hack, little panacea, let me get that insight from it. And so I'm going to ingest that and hope that it, solves my problems and gives me this wisdom and whatever like that. Or it can become addictive in the way that like people begin structuring their identity around it. So instead of what it used to be about your job or your body or something like that, now it becomes like, oh well, I'm this like conscious person, and I do the journeys and that sort of thing, and use all these sort of words and like that, and that subsequently becoming an identity that you latch onto. And part of that identity is that I do psychedelics, and like that. So I think those are certainly possible. I don't see, as I said, I've been involved with these substances for over 5 years in a good amount of countries around the world. I know people, and I know hundreds of people in them of all ages. And I've never really seen someone who's been using psychedelics to where it's like breaking down their life, like someone who has addiction to something like methamphetamines or alcohol or like that. But what you see is, and I would say this is quite common actually from my perspective. I don't know their experience, and so I may be off, but I would say it's quite common to see people who have connected with psychedelics and it has become that identity, and they haven't been cultivating these other abilities like meditation to where they're able to go inside. And so they hit a sort of plateau. Their life, I would imagine is is more positive than it was before they connected with psychedelics, where they were living more unconsciously. Say they're in a career that's harmful to themselves and others, and they're feeling bad, and so they're coming home with angst and negativity, and living unconsciously like that. They're not doing those things to that degree, but they're also don't really seem to be progressing beyond the stories that they're in. So they've hit a plateau, because ultimately, and this I guess goes into I think what will be the last part, which is my current thoughts on psychedelics. And my current thoughts are that ultimately, no, I won't say that yet. My current thoughts are that I'm very grateful to have connected with psychedelics. I'm very grateful for the experiences that I've had, the wisdom and the insights that they have shared with me. My life has changed for the positive. I have changed my life for the positive since I connected with psychedelics. And I have utilized, as I said, over 12 different types between several journeys of certain types to more than several journeys. And I've also microdosed at least 5 different types of substances, each for 3 weeks to 3 months at different times. I've experienced great benefit from them, and I'm really grateful for them. And also, I view them as I view anything that is external. I'm not interested in being reliant upon something that's external. And I don't think that it's necessary. I think that whatever something external provides can be cultivated internally, that we have this incredible ability, this latent, massive power that is like 1 billion X more than we realize, that's in here. And I certainly believe that with psychological challenges or ways of thinking or seeing the world or our own experience. And so that's where I'm at with them currently. I took 2.5 years off of utilizing substances and so didn't have any psychedelic journeys. And then I connected with them this year for some different intentional journeys. And it was very, very great to see where I'm at after having those 2 years of separation, during which time I have been cultivating my inherent abilities. I've been cultivating meditation, been cultivating the relationship with the self, been cultivating relationship with emotion like fear and anxiety and anger and sadness. And to see how I was able to maneuver these journeys, which in the past may have been much more challenging than they were, and also to see how I was able to integrate the experience afterwards. Integration, in my opinion, is the key to a psychedelic journey or to any experience, because ultimately we live life every day. We have these experiences one time or a few times. They last for some moments, some hours, some days. You have a retreat, it lasts for 10 days. But then we're living life every day, every moment. So how do we take what we learned, what we experienced, the insights, whatever, and integrate that into our day-to-day life, so that subsequently, instead of relying upon this external thing, this retreat, this journey, this relationship, this job, instead of relying upon that for this feeling of safety or for feeling like I'm a good person or feeling love or whatever, how do I integrate that so that I am able to cultivate that and I'm able to be at a place where I'm at peace, where I feel love, where I feel power, where I have access to these ways of thinking, ways of acting. So that's where I'm at currently. As my practice in meditation has deepened, and when I say meditation, I mean ultimately to be with self, mindful, to remember to observe the mind's movements from object to object, instead of being controlled by it being unconscious and I'm not aware of it, and I'm just continually bouncing around in reaction. I feel this emotion and I do this, and I feel this emotion and I do that, just being totally out of control and controlled by my habitual tendencies that I learned long ago about this is how I act when this or that thing happens. That's what I mean by meditation. So as I've been cultivating that, then my relationship with these substances continues to change, and I continue to utilize them less. I continue to experience what feels to be less benefit from them. And I view it just like, at one time when I was younger and I had only experienced alcohol, and I was really excited about it because it showed me, just like psychedelics showed me, there's something more to this world. Like, wow, I can drink this and I can subsequently experience these different states. I can be doing something that I always do, walking down the street, but now I drink alcohol and I have a totally different experience. Like, wow, this is big. And I was excited about that, and it felt like it gave me these different benefits. But as I matured and as I cultivated and deepened this ability with the self, subsequently I began to see that what I thought were benefits no longer were, and that it wasn't something that I needed in my life anymore, because now my self-confidence, my happiness, my ability to communicate and interact, my ability to see things in the world, those were higher than what alcohol would bring me to. Alcohol would bring me here, and I was already up here, so it didn't make sense to begin to use alcohol. And subsequently, relationship with cannabis has been similar. When I first experienced it, was something similar. It's like, wow, look at this, wow. You smoke this thing or you eat this thing and you experience like all of this stuff, and it feels like creativity and you're flowing with the music and whatnot. But now I'm at a place where my awareness, my consciousness, my abilities inherently are at a place where cannabis doesn't really have an attraction to me. It doesn't really seem to bring things to me. And so I don't say that to disparage psychedelics. I am very appreciative of what they have assisted me with, and I have no doubt that I would not be here where I am right now communicating with you in this way if I hadn't had psychedelics. I think it's possible to get here without psychedelics, absolutely 100%. But would I be here right now at this moment if I hadn't? I don't believe so, because they showed me things and they assisted me in evolving different areas that I had been really challenged with for many years and decades. So I'm very grateful for it. And also, I don't see them continuing to play the role in my life that they played previously. So that is my thoughts on psychedelics. And as I mentioned, it's a large topic with lots of stuff going on. And I'm sure that there's plenty of stuff that I could have said from my own experience that I didn't. I'll take a moment here to see if anything comes up. No, not right now. So my suggestion would be, if you're interested in this, do research. Look at the resources. I'll share some resources. I shared them in there. But now, thankfully, there's lots of information out there. It's not hard to find. You find plenty of podcasts. You find plenty of books. You find plenty of research. Just Google, psychedelic studies, psychedelic information, that sort of thing. Then take it all with a grain of salt, especially when you're getting your information from forums or from websites where people are sharing their own experiences. That's valid. It's their experience. But it doesn't mean that these people understand the depth and wisdom of to be able to say something that you should take as gospel, So take it with a grain of experience. And then if you choose to connect with these substances, do it first build a community around you. And when you're new to it, you don't know a lot of people, so find a psychedelic society. If you can't do that, if there's none around, then connect with people online, have some relationships with people. Don't do this alone. Don't, either like in the actual journey, don't do it alone, especially on your first times. And also don't take the bigger journey of exploring psychedelics and mind consciousness on your own. And then when you do choose to ingest these substances, shake hands with it. Do it on a step-by-step basis. Okay, this time around, we're interested in ingesting mushrooms, so we're going to eat, I'm going to eat 0.5 gram, which is a small amount, and maybe don't feel anything. That's fine. And then a week, 2 weeks, whatever, later, you feel, okay, I'm going to eat 1 gram. I'm going to eat 2 grams. We're going to see where this goes. And I would suggest, at least in the initial stages, tracking these sorts of things. Documenting it, journaling can be very beneficial. So do that. So you've done your research, you've got your community, you shake hands with it, you go through it. Now, in life in general, cultivate practices that are going to assist you. Cultivate meditation, so then you have the ability to be more equanimous in these journeys, and they're not so challenging. You can be in the journeys and you can gain the actual insights from them instead of just being blasted by information all the time. I can't even think because I don't know how to control my mind in general. And then post-journey, the integration. Focus on integration, learn about integration, study integration, have an idea, journal, walk and talk and speak to yourself, look at things with an open mind. Okay, instead of saying, oh, well, this happened, so this means this. Okay, that happened. I wonder what that means. It could potentially mean this. Bounce it off of people. Do that sort of thing. Do that. And at the same time, when you do have really powerful, positive experiences, treasure that. Because when we attempt to put words to something that is ineffable, that we're not able to communicate, that words can't describe, which is basically nothing. Give me one thing that words can actually truly describe. They can't describe anything because describing means it's not it, and the only way for it to fully describe something is to be it, to experience it. So when we try to put limited words to it, we subsequently start building those stories about it and putting it in this small box, and we subsequently stop seeing all the potential that's in it. And when we do that and we share those stories with people who aren't at the same place as we are, and they respond with disparagement or fear or confusion or negativity or whatever, then that subsequently becomes part of the story. And so it can really shift the experience that we have. So cherish that. When you have those sorts of experiences, take time before you speak about them. And then when you do speak about them, be conscious of who you're speaking to and how they will most likely respond to it. And if you don't think it's going to be positive, then don't speak about it to them. And practice meditation.